All right, so it's time to welcome our keynote panelists to the virtual stage. We've got on board Mr. Robert Weiner from Starbox Inc., Omri Mor. Omri from Routable is a recent Series B recipient, just raised another round of funding for their streamlined APAR solution. Omri, thanks for joining us. Also on the publisher side, as I just mentioned, is Rohit Gupta. From Auditoria.AI. I believe also an angel invested and venture funded organization that is making waves in the AI back office arena. And Omri and Rohit are bringing to us the perspective of NetSuite Alliance partners, companies that have aligned with the NetSuite ecosystem and seen within the user base a great confluence for their own products and services. So both have invested heavily in the NetSuite ecosystem, and we're happy to have them on today talking about scalability. Finally, David Smooha from Business Solution Partners, my boss, is here representing the partner side of the ecosystem. David built his business originally around Microsoft Dynamics, and about 20 years ago made the shift into the NetSuite ecosystem, and has been supporting the NetSuite community ever since. So David is going to bring sort of the partner perspective, not just in the scalability of his own business, but also a lot of the clients that he works with. So I am going to throw it over to Robert to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his organization. And we're going to do the same for each of our panelists today. So Robert, why don't you take the swing first and tell us a little bit about yourself and about Starbox.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Robert Weiner, and my company is Starbox. We are a one-stop packaging distributor and manufacturer for temperature-sensitive packaging. Otherwise, basically, we provide boxes for perishable shipping. So seafood, pharma, live aquaria, aquarium fish, and we're a distributor, so we have trucks in a warehouse, lots of inventory. We have 2 locations, one in Southern California, one in Northern California. And we implemented NetSuite in 2017, where we moved from QuickBooks, where we had very limited visibility and who was looking at the software. And we worked with business solution partners to implement NetSuite, and it's really opened up our company to have a pretty wonderful view on the 360 of our company, on the data, and we've been pretty happy with NetSuite. And so that's why I joined these panels, because I'm just a big fan, and I think that it's a great software for us, and let everybody know that will listen, how happy I am.
Awesome. Robert, I don't know if it's just the camera angle right now, but you're looking a lot like John Cena. I think you've been getting swole during the pandemic. Am I wrong?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been, I got a little extra time. I actually have 2 little kids now. I get one on this arm, one on this arm, and
there you go.
Weightlifting of the kids.
I've only got the one, so I'm very, asymmetrical right now. All right, thank you, Robert. We're going to get back to you with some questions in just a bit. Let's shift over to Rohit Gupta from Auditoria. Rohit, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your organization? Maybe a little bit more than Terry just told us, huh?
There we go. I think Terry, did a great job there. Thanks again, Craig, for having me on your panel this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you all here at this session. As Craig mentioned, my name is Rohit Gupta. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Auditoria. We are a SaaS provider that is specifically focused on bringing artificial intelligence and what we call cognitive automation to the ERP finance world. And that's all we do. I mean, we work with back office teams, with corporate finance teams, much like you all out in this session in this user group today. And our job is frankly to use our, to help companies that use our software to make them more efficient and competitive by accelerating critical finance processes by increasing business visibility, using the AI and machine learning as it's applied to day-to-day business processes, whether it's in the receivables world or the payables world, or and FP&A, tax, treasury, so on and so forth. By automating several of these key functions, Auditoria strives to improve the lives of finance and accounting professionals by leveraging this technology, right? We help in automating the routine, the repetitive, and the laborious parts of the finance function. Just think of the back and forth that you all have to deal with when you engage with vendors and payers and the follow-ups. And it just frees finance teams up to perform higher level business functions. So again, we're thrilled to have the opportunity to share a little bit about Auditoria. We're glad to be a partner here with BSP, and looking forward to this and further sessions down the line. Thank you again for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Rohit. We're going to lobby some questions in your direction, but first I'd like to say really awesome that you're doing some fintech stuff, but please call me when you have some AI that's doing design work and writing copy so that you can make my job easier. It seems like we're always trying to make the finance guys' jobs easier, but come on, I need a lifeline here. All right.
There we go. We'll do it.
All right. Omri, let's introduce yourself. Omri from Routable. Like I said earlier, just closed a Series B round, is in a massive scaling mode right now. And I'm really happy to get Omri's perspective on, scaling strategies and what our user group needs to know, whether you're a CEO or you're working in finance or you're, in logistics or in operations. We all kind of need to know what to identify in scaling organizations and what to look for and how to help our organization scale. So Omri, why don't you give us a little perspective on yourself and the team over at Routable?
Sure thing. Thank you, Craig. First of all, I am in the weeds when it comes to scaling right now. We are attempting to hire 100 employees between now and the end of November. So in terms of just growth and investment, and 70% of those are actually product design and engineering, which are the toughest things to hire out there. All I do is thinking about how to think about every single one of my team members and shave off 3 to 4 seconds from what they do, right? Incrementally over time. But a lot of that philosophy came from my previous company. My co-founder and I, 2 separate companies, had the unfortunate experience of scaling from 1,000 to 400,000 business payouts per month to over 50,000 vendors. It is a lot. We built a whole internal infrastructure, and about half of our company was just building internal tooling for business payments. It's not fun. We built our own QuickBooks integrations, then deprecated that, then built our own NetSuite integration, and moved through all the processing partners you can imagine. But the thing that comes with scale is saving time and sharing information across teams. So we built Routable to help companies scale very quickly with payables and receivables. Most of our feature set is really targeted around AP automation at scales. As I mentioned earlier during the little commercial we did, we really help with scaling from anywhere from 100 to 100,000 payables per month, all the way from manual data entry to CSV uploads and APIs. And I am more than happy to talk about scaling and also remote scaling. Our whole company is remote. We employ 19 states and 4 countries. I think that by the end of the year, we'll be at about 30 states and 10 to 12 countries. So I'm more than available. You guys have my email address. I shared it earlier to talk about how to make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you for being a great resource to the community. I know that you're heavily involved in like Y Combinator and other like Techstars and things like that, which are great scaling resources. So we'll lob some questions over to you in just a minute. Let me introduce our last panelist, David Smooha. David is the CEO of Business Solution Partners. BSP is a solution provider partner in the NetSuite ecosystem. And not only is the organization growing, but we also work with partners like Omri and Rohit, as well as users like Robert and Starbox. So we're seeing trending all across the ecosystem, companies that have been going like gangbusters since the pandemic, companies that had issues, And David, why don't you give us a little bit of information about yourself and Business Solution Partners?
Thanks, Craig. So Business Solution Partners, we've been around for a little over 25 years now, helping companies streamline really every part of their business processes. We work with obviously NetSuite and ERP systems, as well as the partners that as Craig mentioned earlier. So because we see many companies and customers, we see what people do day to day from in the way they streamline their processes in their business, what tools they use, what automations they use, and a great ability to be able to either help with implementing those solutions or recommending those solutions to our customers. We see a very large number of NetSuite customers with a whole host of different business issues, business requirements, and help those companies implement those processes. Our team is made up of, I'm a CPA, and my team's made up of largely a large number of accountants and CPAs in our business. And so we understand, not only do we understand technology, but we also understand accounting, business process for your business.
Awesome. Thanks, David. All right. So panel, let's get into it. We're here today to talk about scalability. And I think the elephant in the room for the concept of scalability this year has been the pandemic. You know, we all had to reimagine business, reimagine how we go to market, how we communicate with our consumers, you know, the partnerships that we have. We may have had business interruption. We may be offering a solution that has significantly increased the scale and the scope of our service offerings. So I'm going to start with the question of, you know, as far as your own businesses, what is the business growth trajectory, and how did the pandemic affect that trajectory?
I'm happy to take that on very quickly. And I remember like we were having our best year, January, February. And I remember that a huge part of our revenue side of things and our customers are ticketing companies. We help Oracle Arena get paid, Barclays Center get paid. We work with just a lot of companies that need to pay a lot of arenas. For some reason, our solution works for that. And as you guys all know, the pandemic hit, and March was looking okay, and then April was just we lost like we went from 30% growth month over month from these customers to dropping 99% usage. They dropped to 1% usage of what they were doing. So, you know, there's an immediate shock that comes from that and saying like, wow, our metrics for our board meeting are going to be terrible, because you don't want to show up and to the right and then a huge decline. We had a hard board meeting at the end of Q1 2020. We closed out 2020 with our best year ever. I think that what we needed to do was have investment from every employee, have investment from our team, from our investors, from our advisory board, our partners, about what we need to do. We understood that we couldn't keep relying on that segment specifically. We really tripled down on people operations and learning and management internally. We just overinvested in our employees. I'm doing something silly right now, like partnering with Warby Parker to buy blue light glasses for every one of our employees, because we all stare at computers all the time. But a series of small events over time to show people that we're investing in them, showing our customers that we're investing in them. And that led to just the best referrals from new hires and the best referrals from customers. And we were able to grow and, you know, hit every growth metric and more, and really put our path for 2021 the right way. But the pandemic was not easy. That first quarter was terrifying.
Yeah, it sounds like if you had your head down and weren't really reacting to the situation and just kind of following the standard business plan, that it would have hurt. And that the watchword here was pivot and sort of, you know, understand what's going on and make the necessary changes to your business model, right?
Well, and one more thing to comment here is that I think that in 2020, it was a defining moment for any business to say, do your employees want to stay there, right? We had, police brutality, we had riots, we had a lot of hate crime happening, we had fires displacing our employees, we had hurricane in Midwest, America taking out people. Like there was things happening overseas. We employed in 4 countries. What we learned very quickly was that if we weren't going to be the most empathetic employer, we were not going to be able to retain folks. And we saw a lot of talented people come on the market that were being underappreciated and that were being fired for no reason. The reasons was COVID has hit and the business was suffering, but they weren't being given layoff packages that were appropriate. They were not giving really notice and stuff like that. And we took that as an approach to overinvest in every part of the employee experience at Routable, which has allowed us to keep growing at a rapid clip now. And it is a critical part of everything that we do moving forward.
Robert, I'm interested in your perspective here. Shipping and logistics there's been major interruptions in shipping and logistics, and food, which is one of your big categories, for perishable goods being shipped. How was your trajectory, prior to the events of COVID, and then what did the effect that it had on you?
Yeah, thank you. So for us, we do a lot of food packaging and a lot of seafood. And seafood for the last 30 years has been flat. The per capita consumption in the United States, for whatever reason, just has been flat. But through the pandemic, actually, at the end, it's grown for the first time in the last 30 years. And one of the reasons is all the meat processing plants have had all these issues. You hear about the COVID shutdowns, shortages, even that recent that ransomware thing for that big meat company. And so seafood's kind of funny in that it's kind of COVID immune in the sense that you get on a little boat, you go and catch your fish, you come back, and you got your food. But what was really interesting during the pandemic, especially at the beginning when everything was shutting down, is the lack of ability for food producers to get food to market. And so I joke that there's more hungry people during the pandemic than sick people. So food was very, very important. And so for me, I took that responsibility very seriously and making sure our supply lines were open, keeping our customers happy, keeping pricing down. Now it's crazy, but at the beginning, we did a really good job of being a good, consistent supplier for our customers. And so doing that, there was a change in the market. We do a lot of wholesale packaging and we do direct to consumer. And so as that shift, that was pretty scary in March, April, where all the restaurants shut down and our customers, they're selling wholesale. They're like, yeah, we don't have any shipments, so we don't need to buy any boxes. But pretty quickly, a lot of the restaurants and markets started changing. And so we were actually in front of that tidal wave of the direct to consumer shipping. And so we have all the boxes they need. It went from the big 100-pound boxes to a 10-pound box or 5-pound box. And so we fortunately had the right product mix to help the customers that were selling only wholesale to the more direct to consumer model. And through the end of this pandemic, it's been a huge boost for us. We've been very fortunate to get out of it very strong, but also helping our customers understand what it takes to ship perishable. Because a lot of people come to me and said, hey, I got this program, I got this product. I'd like to do a nationwide shipping program this weekend. How does that sound? And it's like, that's ridiculous. It takes about 6 months to get a real perishable shipping program, working with FedEx, UPS, maximizing the refrigerants, making sure that if you're shipping food and something goes wrong, it's not just, hey, my Amazon package is delayed and my widget doesn't get there right. Or it's food, and you're creating some big problems if you actually have to resend the same thing because it didn't get there on time and temperature. And so, like I said, we're fortunate to have those products as a one-stop shop. and it's been a lot of teaching as well. A lot of these customers that come to us and say, "Hey, how do I ship this?" And okay, well, let's kind of run through the program. But it's been good. Like I said, we really take that responsibility seriously, and it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. One of the things that I think keeps coming up is plan versus actual. Well, that's what we're talking about a lot here. Like before the pandemic hit, we all had plans for growth and plans for scalability. And one of the things that I'm experiencing working in the NetSuite ecosystem is that companies that have NetSuite at the core are shifting easier. They're able to pivot in much easier ways. So I'm going to lob this question over to Rohit. Um, at this stage in your company's evolution, what role does long-term and short-term planning have? And would you describe your planning as tactical or aspirational? And in that, I mean, do your planning sessions produce actionable strategy, or are they more of an outline for your operational and fiscal decision making?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Craig. I mean, from our vantage point, look, I mean, we've as a leadership team here at Auditoria, we've sort of taken the approach that, and this is sort of pre-pandemic, that it's frankly too hard, and our business is too agile, or the industries that we serve, essentially the rate of dynamics or the rate of change in them is intense, and it wouldn't make sense for us to sort of plan anything beyond 6 months at a stretch. And so the ability to essentially pivot and update assumptions and make changes and dynamically readjust things, if you will, is an ongoing exercise. We're fortunate as well to be a company that was by definition distributed even before the pandemic. So as I was hearing the other panelists sort of give their perspectives on the prior question, what that essentially, the fact that we were distributed and the fact that we essentially had probably a different sense of fixed costs and things of that nature essentially also helped us, if you will, be a little bit more nimble and agile in our planning efforts. The other dimension on this is this notion, if you will, of leveraging. I mean, if I were to use the metaphor, right, drinking your own champagne, I guess. So we use predictive insights to essentially assess, what and how our customers and, essentially the industries we service, essentially, what kind of macroeconomic, conditions they're experiencing, and what does that mean in terms of our business performance in certain areas, things of that nature. And we do that using Auditoria's own technology. And so that essentially allows us at any given point of time to assess, in addition to the historical data that's obviously in our ERP, what and how these changes essentially should impact budgeting decisions, planning decisions, so on and so forth. Now, of course, from a reporting perspective, I'd say that we're probably a little bit more traditional, akin to a SaaS technology provider, as you can probably imagine. But that being said, for us, planning is a 6-month cycle. It's intended to be the right mix of strategic and tactical, but at the same point of time, we intentionally can't have it too large or too long, just because of the fact that our business is changing and the dynamics and the fundamental assumptions of the business change, which is sort of what drives essentially investment decisions, so on and so forth. One example of that being essentially extending to international markets, which actually took place in the pandemic for us, which was not something that was planned at the outset of the pandemic or the front half of 2020. But here we are in early 2021 with Auditoria presence overseas. I mean, we're present in multiple countries, but we are now supporting clients in Europe and things of that nature as well. So anyways, that's a little bit of perspective, if you will, from my end.
Thank you. Shifting gears, I think we've all kind of acknowledged the role that ERP and technology plays in terms of scalability. In business, we often talk about people, process, and product, right? And the right combination of those three. I don't know if anybody's a Marcus Lemonis fan out here, but that's kind of his watchword, right? People, process, and product are the three pillars that we stand on. And I'm going to argue that technology really bridges the gap between all three. That without the right technologies in place, your people are floundering, your processes are bad, and your product suffers because it can't go to market in the right way and get the support that it needs from your organization. So I'm going to bring David on as one of the technology experts on our panel today. David, can you talk a little bit about technology's place in scalability? How does technology and the right systems help scale, grow, and adapt?
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, technology plays a very big role in some of those areas. So what we see and what we saw even as a business is that we were very reliant on SaaS-based applications, fortunately, when we got into the pandemic, and that technology really has been always and allowed us to continue to be a cohesive organization. So we use a lot of different products that are available in the marketplace to keep the people together and connected. So we're using products like Zoom and Teams to communicate, using products to like SharePoint and Google Docs to be able to share information, make presentations to customers over Zoom. So that technology really was important to us. Our organization is today in 3 countries, soon to be 4, probably scattered throughout the U.S., scattered in like some of the others here, scattered in several states throughout the U.S. So technology was really critical to keep the organization running and smooth going. So, and we see with our clients is they're using the technology as well in the ways they communicate with their customers, whether it might be some of the technologies I just mentioned, or of course using NetSuite in a better way, automating processes in their businesses to eliminate the process for dunning customers, or eliminate the process of getting reporting or information to their salespeople and their sales reps, and for everybody to work off of a single platform with the same consistent information is very critical. One of the things, and probably one of the reasons why I joined NetSuite as a partner 20 some odd years ago, is because it was a single platform that allowed you to have complete interaction with with all components of your business, from sales to accounting, and all the pieces in between, operations, of course. And so this works off of a common database of consistent set of information. And that technology really was great, because when we were prior to working with NetSuite, we saw a lot of disjointed companies running sales in one platform, their CRM in one platform, running the ERP in another platform, running their e-commerce in another platform. And that data was never consistent. The salespeople would come in with their reports and they'd say, this is our numbers, and the accounting people come in, these are our numbers, and nobody ever agreed on what was there. So the technology and the single database and the integration to all these solutions that we have today that really provide one set of common goals and objectives really help companies keep the organization together and focused on the longer term direction of the company, and making sure that they share the same information so they can then share the same goals as well.
All right, thank you. David, I'm going to stick with you for the next question here. We just launched a polling question to our audience about hurdles to growth. In this question, we identified areas like a lack of vision, outdated technologies, supply chain and logistics issues. Quickly, I'm going to ask this of each of the panel members. Can you describe a situation where you've encountered a roadblock to your scalability, and briefly describe how you are either overcoming that challenge or pivoting to make an end run around that hurdle?
Yeah, I can take that first, Craig. So look, I mean, I think one of the fundamental, elements, if you will, for us in terms of a challenge for us as part of our growth, especially going through last year, was distribution. It was really essentially, we couldn't frankly hire, salespeople fast enough, if you will, in order to get the word out on Auditoria's technology and services and what have you. And so one of the elements that we essentially had to make a decision on, and I think it is something that essentially has played itself very well for us as part of our strategy here currently, is essentially an indirect distribution strategy. And so, part of that essentially has manifested itself in Terry Gren being here, but, it's the ability, if you will, for us to essentially create a multi-tiered distribution structure with distributors, resellers, referral partners, BPO partners, and systems integrator partners that essentially drives a holistic distribution strategy that complements, if you will, how we take our products to market. And again, I mean, part of what we found is, this makes a world of a difference, particularly given the domain that we're in, because buyers, if anything, what we learned in the pandemic was it is a, I almost kind of feel like I use the term bought, not sold market, right? Where buyers want to buy at their pace and they want to essentially be educated with the technologies. They want to be educated and aware and abreast and such. And so how do you essentially stay in touch with that? And so the pivot to to essentially ensuring that we've got a holistic channel strategy and essentially having key channel KPIs that essentially supplement or support that has become critical to our growth.
Excellent. That's going to lead into another question about KPIs, but Omri, why don't you take a stab at that question? A roadblock to success, how are you overcoming it or making an end run around it?
I mean, for us, it's just hiring, to be honest with you. Like what Rohit just said, right? You have to hire enough salespeople. You have to hire enough people in general. What I typically do when we hit a problem is try to reach out to about 10 to 15 CEOs in my network and just discover what they're doing. A lot of our efficiencies and gains are done by very, very quick research. Also because we are a remote company, and a lot of this is centered about how do you build a really attractive remote culture to get employees in. I speak to Wade, the CEO of Zapier. We speak to the GitLab team. We speak to the HashiCorp team. So we're constantly trying to figure out which is speak to the Automatic team, which built WordPress, but we're constantly trying to figure out what are efficiencies that we can gain as our remote companies, especially knowing that we're not going to get the opportunity to meet the person live until several months after the pandemic is over, whenever that would be in an HR appropriate way, right? And then also moving forward afterwards. But anytime that we hit a roadblock, right, we have a quick meeting, we talk about our gaps, and then we go do research as quickly as possible. And to be honest, leveraging your networks is one of the easiest things to do, because the number one thing that you do when you ask for help is you learn about other people's mistakes and how you can power through them. And that is what has helped us scale very quickly, is every time that there's crap in our way, someone raises their hand, says, I got this, does research, 2 days later, we know what to do. But you have to build a culture of autonomy, ownership, and iteration in order to do that.
Awesome. Robert, you want to take a swing at that one?
Yeah, so our company is product based in the sense that it's a physical product, and it's big and it's bulky. And so with the supply chain shortages, we have had some interesting issues where lead times to make boxes or different products would go from 4 to 6 days to 4 to 6 weeks, and pricing is going crazy, and that's all well documented. And so our kind of a strategic advantage of having NetSuite, having the availability of seeing the data, the purchasing data, the usage, is that we can kind of stock up. And as a smaller company, a little bit more nimble than some of our big competitors, is that we go and we can pre-buy, we can make additional orders, we can kind of do what we need to do to make sure that the supply chains are open. And a lot of our competitors, what we're seeing is they have big stock outs. They don't know what their costs are. They don't know what their pricing is. They're kind of running around just making some pretty bonehead decisions. And it's been, like I said, a big advantage for us having that visibility with our purchasing, with their warehouse, through NetSuite, and through having this technology to go and, like I said, we can pre-buy, we can place orders, we have work in process. And so it's actually become a pretty good strategic advantage for us as we've been getting out of this pandemic, that we're well positioned to do a pretty good job for our customers, because that's obviously the biggest thing is you have to make sure your customers are happy, making sure that they get their stuff, because usually people think about the box last. That's the last thing that they call for. Like, oh, I got my this, I got my that, I got my artwork, everything. It's like, oh, what about the boxes? And when you tell them, oh, it's 4 to 6 weeks before they can get a printed box, and everybody in town also has a 4 to 6 week lead time, that not only freaks them out, but when you can come back and say, yeah, but I got this stock program, we can get you going right away. And then when your printed boxes are ready, then we'll be ready to go too. Not just makes them happy, but it really gets them going off the ground floor pretty quickly. And so that's been a pretty cool, program that has come out of this whole pandemic, that maybe we didn't plan it to be like that. We never expected these lead times to be so long, but it has definitely been pretty fortunate to be in this position where we're at right now.
Absolutely. Taking advantage of the competition's inability to meet the needs of the customer is always a competitive advantage, right? David, I'll swing back to you for this final question, or final answer to this question about roadblock that you've experienced and how you were able to rise to the challenge or make an end run around it.
Unquestionably, I have to agree with Omri and Rohit. I think the people and the resources is really probably the biggest obstacle that we've been experiencing over the last few years. Just having the right people at the right time, with the right skill sets, constantly trying to train and extend the team that you have, and find the right resources who can service customers with the right information has just really been one of the largest challenges that we've had up until now. And I think that's prevalent within a lot of our clients as well. We see a lot of our clients reaching out to us as they're growing, expanding, or maybe even losing people, asking us to supplement much of the work that they've been originally doing in their own organization. They're asking us to help with that, and try to supplement their business.
Great. So, I mean, we've only got a few minutes left with our awesome panel. I'm going to thank everybody again today for your participation. This has really been a great session. Before we close out, I want to focus in on each of your relationships with NetSuite, because this is a NetSuite user group, so we can't ignore that. And I'd like everybody to talk for a minute, pardon me, about your perspective on the NetSuite ecosystem. So, Robert, you're a NetSuite customer. How is that aligned with? How have you aligned with NetSuite to help it achieve your goals? Omri and Rohit, you're both software publishers with fintech solutions. You've made NetSuite a primary alliance partner. Why did you choose to align with NetSuite, and what have been the results? And David, you've built your business around NetSuite as a solution provider. So what does a commitment to NetSuite represent to you? Why don't we start that question with Rohit?
Absolutely. Look, NetSuite is the gold standard for enterprise resource planning in the medium enterprise. We're thrilled to be a NetSuite software publisher, software partner, and essentially continue to look to amplify our investment with NetSuite over the next several years. One of the things that has separated NetSuite from the pack, clearly they were one of the earliest movers into the cloud, but their commitment essentially to open APIs, to open interoperability, the ability to bring together this ecosystem of best of breed solutions that really essentially delivers holistic value to clients that not only consume NetSuite or essentially have NetSuite as the anchor of their financial universe, and then obviously supporting solutions like us around that, really sort of goes back to why we, have chosen to be, close to them and be a partner for them. The other element, if you will, of, what we find with NetSuite is, again, just this commitment to innovation, right? They're continuously pushing the envelope in extending into new areas and different dimensions, if you will, of the technology and the application stack. And that essentially is something that we can parlay or build upon as we add value to our mutual customers. Lastly, there is just this incredible open mode of communication and transparency around product roadmaps, around what's coming when and what to expect when and things of that nature, which for us as a software publisher is so important, right? You never want to be surprised. You never want to know that, hey, all of a sudden an API got deprecated, things of that nature. I was in an internal company meeting yesterday where they were talking about, the engineering team was talking about the latest update on the security side that NetSuite essentially had published. And these are just examples, but that level of transparency and communication that ensures that partners like us are never surprised is, again, just best in class. And so these are, again, some of the reasons why we believe that, NetSuite is, again, represents the gold standard for ERP in the medium enterprise. And for us is an absolute North Star for us in terms of our partnership strategies and how we take our solutions to market.
Excellent. From the user perspective, Robert, why don't we hear a little bit about your relationship to NetSuite?
Yeah, so what I love about NetSuite is that it's very customizable, obviously, and with a little bit of programming, not even a lot of programming, I can go and kind of tweak with a few things and get the right thing to the right person. And what that has done is it's allowed me to get the right data to the right people at the right place. And what I mean by that is you can really focus in on what is the information that one person needs to do their job, to get all the data they need, and then without all the extra stuff. And so a good example of that is that we have a satellite warehouse in Northern California, and we run this whole operation paperless with just an iPad. And so they just see the data that they need to see. They see the inventory that they have. They get the dispatch reports. They get the bill ladings for signing on the iPad. Not touchless because you're touching the screen, but you're not getting paper, and that's amazing. And so, and then to get another, if I get another warehouse, it's a couple clicks, and this other warehouse can pop up completely paperless with all the data that they need, and it just, that's incredible. And so what it does, it allows me to kind of step back from the decision making, and it empowers my employees to make their own decisions. And so I don't want to micromanage. I don't want to go and say, oh, well, my experience says this and this. I want them to make a decision with data, with conviction, and then basically if it's defendable and say, hey, I made this decision for this reason, then we can all buy in on it and we can move forward. We don't need to second guess people. People aren't making things up and just kind of willy-nilly making decisions. They have the data, they have the information, and we can move forward as a team to actually action on either the data that they have, the decision they have, and it's amazing. It's a really cool program that allows me to do that, allows my team to do that, and that's why I'm such a big fan. So
pretty awesome. Like, accountability to the data is accountability to each other, right? So as long as you're making decisions based on what the data is telling you, then you're making the right decision and you can defend it. And, if it doesn't end up great, well, at least you had a foundation for why you made that decision, and, shit happens, right? So.
Yeah, and that's 100%. It's a really big thing, because if you're in leadership, if you're leading a team, you don't want to micromanage. You don't want to tell them what to do. You want them to make their decisions. But then, as you move forward, you all have to be on the same page. And so, I think Bezos and Amazon had a thing about you can disagree on the decision, but once the decision has been made, you commit. Everybody commits, and you move forward. And you have a foundation on this decision. Here it is. Here's the data. If the data needs to change, if you need to update the metrics or whatever, different story. But you're not going to get mad. There's no time for that. And so you just kind of move forward, and things move fast these days. So you can't spend too much time on that.
Awesome. So technically we've got to move on to our next session, but as the host, I'm going to take a liberty here, and I'm going to bring Omri back into the conversation to close us out. Omri, give us just a little bit of insight as to why you chose NetSuite as a primary alliance partner, and what you're finding in the NetSuite ecosystem here.
Yeah, so Robert and Rohit really hit on a lot of points. One of the things that I want to talk about is being able to support a customer through its life cycle. We had a customer that grew by 3,000% in the past 12 months. It's a lot. And when you grow by 3,000%, you hire new finance folks, you bring in operations, you have new customizations, you have new data requirements. NetSuite is, to my knowledge, the only platform that could take someone from a high growth SMB to a solid mid-market into the enterprise. And if you think about it, every day we invest in optimizing how people pay and receive money and how data is shared with finance teams, operations teams, treasury teams, and security teams. We wanted to work with the best in class, as Rohit said, but we also wanted to work with someone, as Robert describing, that makes the data accessible as your needs shift. NetSuite owns that, and they own that in the market, right? They allow, and David, and you know this as well, they allow a company to come in with a limited set of definitions and to expand as its business requires it over time. Outside of that, we have a great relationship with them. I actually did 2 technical calls with their team trying to break our app. On Monday, we had a call with their marketing team. Last week, we're talking to their events team next week. So they're very responsive. I think that there's a shared investment between what we want to do in terms of reducing crap per payment. I talk about that a lot, but about being really efficient and giving folks in finance, operations, engineering, et cetera, time back into their day. That's our responsibility. But in terms of having a flexible and scalable source of truth, NetSuite is that for us. And that's why we invest so much in not only our integration, but the relationship that we have with their teams.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we talk about a company the size of Oracle NetSuite with a $1 billion revenue rate, and we expect and we see that a lot of that money is invested back into the product and to the people, right? So, Omri, you bring up a great point. Like, every team at NetSuite, whether they're in marketing or product or, technical or implementation, they're all sort of aligned towards the same goal of supporting the customer base, the ecosystem, the users at the end of the day who are logging in and out of that system, and the businesses, like you elegantly described, that can go with a financials first package and just get up and running so that the back office is sort of squared away. But as their needs grow through logistics, through partnerships, through a one world automation where now you're a global organization doing business on 3 different continents, NetSuite is there for that entire life cycle. That's an awesome point. Thank you so much for making that. I want to give a rousing, silent, virtual round of applause. I'll be the only one clapping to our expert team of panelists today, CEOs from around the NetSuite ecosystem, Rohit, Omri, Robert, and David. Thank you all for being with us.